proud to announce the new senior series. The reason why
The family behind American Chopper nearly destroyed itself in front of millions of viewers. When the show premiered on Discovery Channel, the explosive relationship between Paul Teutul Sr. and Paul Teutul Jr. turned a small bike shop into one of cable television's biggest reality hits. But once the cameras stopped rolling, the cast scattered into very different lives. So where did the builders of Orange County Choppers end up after the show ended? And how did the feud that defined the series change their lives? Join us as we reveal where the American Chopper cast is today. Paul Teutul Sr.
you know, just doing a parts accessory for the bike, you know, OCCing it out.
Paul Teutul Sr. is the reason American Chopper existed at all. He founded Orange County Choppers in 1999 out of a steel fabrication business he'd been running for years, the kind of operation that doesn't make headlines, doesn't attract cameras, and doesn't generate internet memes. Then a production crew from Pilgrim Films arrived, and within a year, Paul Sr. was one of the most recognizable faces on cable television. Audiences loved him and feared him in equal measure. He yelled, he fired people, he threw things. He was also, when the temper wasn't running, a man of genuine skill and unexpected warmth. Someone who had been sober for decades after a serious battle with alcohol and drugs in his younger years, who brought on family members to work alongside him, and who built bikes of a caliber that earned the shop commissions from celebrities, corporations, and the United States military. The peak years were extraordinary. At its height, OCC occupied a 61,000 square foot facility in Newburgh, New York, a building so large it felt more like a manufacturing complex than a motorcycle shop. American Chopper attracted over 3 million viewers during its strongest seasons and is widely credited with helping shift the Discovery Channel from a pure documentary network toward the reality television model it uses today. The fame translated into a level of commercial success that felt, in those years, entirely sustainable. However, it was not sustainable. The relationship between Sr. and his son, Paul Jr., collapsed publicly and catastrophically in 2008 and 2009, spilling into lawsuits that dragged through the New York court system for years. The show survived it, became a spin-off because of it, but the business underneath was hemorrhaging. In March 2018, the day before the American Chopper reboot premiered on Discovery, Paul Sr. filed for Chapter 13 bankruptcy protection, listing debts of more than $1.07 million owed to nearly 50 creditors, including $151,000 in back taxes to the town of Crawford, New York, and $32,000 on a separate judgment. His monthly income at the time was listed at $15,000 from OCC, enough to cover expenses, but nowhere near enough to service the debt load that had accumulated. The lawsuits didn't stop there. A business partner named Thomas Derbyshire separately sued Paul Sr., alleging that he had invested millions into a proposed new reality show called Orange County Choppers, American-made, only to have Paul Sr. use the money for personal expenses, take a long fishing trip that derailed filming, and then refuse to work with a biker he'd previously agreed to feature. That litigation added another layer of legal and financial chaos to an already complicated picture. Sr.'s response to all of it was to start over, literally. In 2020, he announced he was moving the entire Orange County Choppers operation to Florida. The 61,000 square foot New York building sat empty, eventually listed for sale by CBRE. In 2021, he opened the OCC Roadhouse and Museum in Pinellas Park, Florida, a complex that functions simultaneously as a restaurant, a concert venue, and a motorcycle museum. He remains at the helm. He has been actively involved with animal rescue organizations in the area. And as of 2024, he has been hinting, loudly and repeatedly, that a new show is coming. A Facebook page called OCC, The Next Chapter, began posting updates about a reunion series that had apparently filmed at least partial footage in the Hudson Valley. Whether that project reaches a network or a streaming platform remains, as of early 2026, unconfirmed. The son who Sr. fired, sued, and eventually reconciled with has built something out of that wreckage that the old version of their relationship probably never could have produced. So, what does Paul Jr. look like on the other side of all of it? Paul Teutul Jr. Paul Teutul Jr. was the creative engine of American Chopper, and most people who followed the show understood that even when it was hard to say so out loud. His father owned the building, ran the business, and had the final say over everything, including, repeatedly, whether Paul Jr. was still employed there. But the bikes that made OCC famous, that got them commissions from Gillette and the New York Yankees and the United States Army, that showed up in magazines and on talk shows and on the floors of corporate lobbies, those bikes came from Paul Jr.'s head. He was the one who could sit down with a napkin and a pen and translate a client's abstract idea into steel and chrome, and something that made people stop walking and stare. The firing that ended his time at OCC came in 2009, after years of escalating conflict that the cameras both documented and almost certainly amplified. He launched Paul Jr. Designs, a firm that expanded beyond motorcycles from the beginning, taking on product design, branding, and fabrication work for clients who wanted the OCC aesthetic applied to something other than a bike. The one-year non-compete clause with OCC meant he couldn't build motorcycles right away, so he designed a dog park in Montgomery, New York, and gave Coleman's road trip grill a complete visual overhaul. When the clause expired, he went back to bikes, on his own terms, for the first time in his professional life. The clients that followed were a significant step up in cultural profile. He built 2 Azeroth choppers for Blizzard Entertainment's World of Warcraft, bikes that became characters in the game itself. He built 2 motorcycles for the Paramount film Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Out of the Shadows. He has worked with major league sports organizations and had bikes displayed at LaGuardia Airport. His showroom, now based in Ship Bottom on Long Beach Island, New Jersey, functions as a gallery and a destination. Bikes from the American Chopper years displayed alongside his wife Rachel's adjacent shop, with weekends drawing fans who make the trip specifically to see the work in person. He married Rachel Beister, his longtime girlfriend, in August 2010, a wedding that aired on TLC. They have a son together. He published a memoir called The Build, Designing My Life of Choppers, Family and Faith, which addressed not only the professional story, but also the years of damaged relationship with his father, and the faith that he says sustained him through both. The reconciliation with Paul Sr. has been gradual and, by most accounts, genuine, the kind of repair that only seems possible after enough time and enough mutual loss to make the old terms of engagement feel exhausting. He launched the Paul Jr. podcast in September 2021, which has become a consistent platform for conversations about design, entrepreneurship, veteran suicide prevention, and the American Chopper years. He has reunited on the podcast with Vinnie DiMartino and his brother Mikey, producing episodes that have given longtime fans the behind-the-scenes stories the show itself never quite got to. As of 2025, Paul Jr. Designs is active and well. Paul Jr. is present on social media and at fan events. And the son who spent years being told his ideas were wrong has built a business and a life entirely on the strength of those ideas. His younger brother had a very different journey, one that took him through addiction, artistic ambition, and a version of himself that had to be rebuilt more than once before it held. Mikey Teutul.
Well, I think the fact that I know that there won't be any interest in Dad talking to me for the sake of a camera being there or something like that.
Mikey Teutul was the show's pressure valve. In a workplace defined by the sustained tension between Paul Sr. and Paul Jr., Mikey's role was to be the thing that kept the whole environment from becoming completely unwatchable. The guy who said something absurd in the middle of a screaming match, who showed up with an idea that had nothing to do with motorcycles, who reminded everyone that there was a version of life at OCC that wasn't just conflict. He was, for large stretches of the show's run, the most immediately likable person on screen. That likability had a cost, because beneath it, Mikey was struggling with alcohol addiction in ways the show touched on but never fully addressed. He checked himself into rehab, worked through it, and eventually returned to work at OCC in a different capacity, as assistant general manager, a role that suited his personality better than fabrication. Outside the shop, he opened an art gallery in Montgomery, New York, exploring a visual creativity that had always been part of who he was, but had never had an official outlet. The gallery closed in 2014, but the work continued. He created a web series called Bummin' Around, which documented the homelessness crisis in New York in a way that was personal rather than clinical. Mikey on the street, having real conversations, making something out of a problem most people preferred not to look at directly. He also founded FarQ LLC, a company dealing in pasta sauces, which, if you know Mikey's sense of humor, fits perfectly. He is married to Paula Teutul and has remained, by most accounts, one of the more privately contented members of a family that spent years performing its dysfunction for millions of strangers. He has appeared alongside Paul Jr. and Vinnie DiMartino at fan events and on the podcast in 2025, seeming genuinely happy to revisit the show from the safety of years of distance. The version of Mikey who exists now is someone who worked through the things the camera only glimpsed and came out the other side still recognizably himself. While the Teutuls were working through the family side of the story, the men who built the bikes alongside them had their own paths to navigate. And for the two most beloved fabricators in OCC history, those paths led in very different directions. Vinnie DiMartino. Vinnie DiMartino was recruited to OCC in early 2002 by his high school friend Paul Jr., and for 5 years he was the show's quiet center of gravity. While the Teutuls generated the drama, Vinnie generated the work. A skilled fabricator who showed up, built extraordinary things, and managed to stay visibly sane in an environment that was actively hostile to sanity. The internet loved him for it. The meme of Sr. screaming at Jr. across a desk would not be half as funny without the implication that Vinnie was somewhere in the background, holding a wrench, waiting for it to be over. He left OCC in August 2007, citing the lack of opportunity for advancement and a long-held desire to run his own operation. He opened V-Force Customs in Rock Tavern, New York, a custom motorcycle shop that he built from scratch. His OCC colleague Cody Connolly joined him there. He returned to television briefly for American Chopper, Sr. vs. Jr. in 2010. Working alongside Paul Jr. again, the agreement included a stipulation that he could wear V-Force branding on camera, so the audience understood the shop was still operational. It was, for a while. By 2013, the custom motorcycle market that had fueled OCC's peak years had contracted significantly. The recession had thinned the pool of clients who could commission a $50,000 custom build, and the cultural moment that had made choppers into status objects had passed. Vinnie made a decision that was more pragmatic than sentimental. He sold off the expensive shop equipment, the water jet, the CNC machine, rebranded the business as DiMartino Motorsports Automotive and Truck Repair in Walden, New York, and went back to what he'd grown up doing in his father's garage: car repair and truck service. The kind of work that has a steady customer base regardless of what's trending in cable television. In 2022, he launched DiMartino Industries alongside his cousin Joey DiMartino, a venture focused on branded apparel and customized vehicle giveaways. He has 4 children with his wife, Melissa. He has a YouTube channel where he takes fan questions and documents shop work. He has declined multiple invitations to return to television, including an invitation from Paul Jr. himself for the 2018 revival. Vinnie DiMartino has, with remarkable consistency, chosen life over the camera. And by every visible measure, his life has been a good one. Rick Petco made a similar choice, but he made it by going home. And what he built in the mountains of Pennsylvania after leaving OCC is one of the more quietly satisfying second acts in the show's entire cast. Rick Petco. Rick Petco was not a Teutul. He was not related to anyone at OCC by blood or by long history. He joined the shop as a welder and fabricator in July 2003, and what he brought with him was a background so varied it seemed almost implausible. He had worked as a crane operator and cold saw operator at one of Bethlehem Steel's facilities, attended welding school, built NASCAR chassis, spent 5 years at Pocono Raceway at the driving school, worked with the Hooters Pro Cup race team, and spent a decade in industrial contracting, relining kilns and furnaces across the East Coast, from crematoriums to aluminum foundry furnaces. He arrived at OCC as someone who had been building things with his hands his entire adult life and didn't particularly need the camera to validate the work. He became one of the show's most consistently appealing figures precisely because of that attitude. While the family drama raged around him, Rick kept his head down and built bikes for Bill Murray, for Donald Trump, for Carroll Shelby, for Lance Armstrong. He had no interest in the conflict and no investment in politics. He was there to fabricate. The audience recognized that and responded to it. He stayed with OCC through every version of the show: the original run, the spin-offs, the 2018 revival, longer than almost anyone outside the family itself. The reason he finally left in 2016 was simple and entirely relatable: the commute. He had been driving 90 minutes each way between his home in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, and the OCC facility in New York for years, 3 hours a day in a car, time that was increasingly difficult to justify after he married Brittany Cockerham in 2012 and they had 2 daughters together. He approached Jim and Linda Schleier, who run Pocono Mountain Harley-Davidson in Stroudsburg, with a proposal to establish a custom fabrication shop inside the dealership. They said yes immediately. A mile from his house, Rick built himself a new version of what he'd been doing for 13 years at OCC: custom builds, restorations, one-off fabrication, without the screaming, without the commute, and without the cameras. He has since expanded his custom work through the American Road Group network of Harley-Davidson dealerships, partnering with multiple locations across the country to offer bespoke bike builds to customers. He also runs RPD & Co., from a shop on his farm in the Pocono Mountains, a home business that produces custom knives, hand-forged metalwork, and custom wedding bands using skills that predate OCC and have nothing to do with motorcycles. He told the Pocono Record about his television years. "That was great while it lasted, but it still wasn't the core of what I was about or what I like to do." That sentence says everything about Rick Petco. Not everyone from the American Chopper years ended up staying in fabrication. One of them became one of the most recognizable voices in American public media, and the story of how that happened is its own kind of American Chopper episode. Mike Rowe. Mike Rowe narrated American Chopper from its earliest episodes through 2010, providing the voice that gave shape and context to what the cameras were capturing. For the millions of people who watched the show during its peak years, his voice was the sonic wallpaper of every build. Dry, warm, and precise, in a way that made the work feel both consequential and slightly absurd, which is exactly the right tone for a show about a family that screams at each other while building motorcycles for the U.S. Army. After departing American Chopper, Rowe became the face and voice of Dirty Jobs on Discovery Channel, a series that put him inside some of the most physically demanding and socially invisible jobs in America and, in the process, made him one of the most genuinely effective advocates for skilled trades that the country has produced in recent memory. He parlayed that platform into something broader, a foundation called Micro Works that provides scholarships to students pursuing trade education. At a moment when the national conversation about the value of college versus vocational training has never been louder or more urgent. He has his own whiskey. He has received the Distinguished Eagle Scout Award from the Boy Scouts of America. He narrated How America Works for Fox Business and presented the 2024 documentary Something to Stand For, which explored the stories of unrecognized heroes from the Civil Rights Movement and World War II. He currently lives in San Francisco. The thing about Mike Rowe is that he was always more than a narrator. He had opinions about work, about the dignity of physical labor, about the gap between what America says it values and what it actually pays for, and he has spent the years since American Chopper turning those opinions into a public career that has reached far more people than the show ever did. What was your favorite build from the whole run? Which other cast members would you like us to cover next? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.